So I think I'm going to change the name of the blog to just my Discord name, Master Blast of Course Log, because I have picked up some other projects here. So I'm not exclusively working on the country club anymore, which of course slows everything down. But so I think the video blog's just going to change. So December 8th update, what I've been working on. So first of all, if you weren't aware, I had a raffle. And the result of that raffle, it was for charity. It's for the Four Diamonds Fund. And it was wildly successful. So my daughter is doing a fundraiser for the Four Diamonds Fund. She's a part of, it's kind of like a subset of Penn State Dance Marathon. Their high school does, it's called Minithon, and they raise money for the Four Diamonds Fund, which supports children with cancer. So I said, well, first of all, I don't build courses for money. I do it because I like it. People have asked me to do it for money. I decided to do a charity raffle, and if you bought a ticket, you would potentially have the opportunity for me to build your course. So I did that raffle, and the idea was to cap it at once I reached $1,500, I would do the raffle. Well, 12 hours later, we had $2,300. I think it was 2380. So it was fantastic. So if you contributed to that, thank you very much. Well, we did the raffle, and Kapalua, the course in Hawaii, the plantation course, won the raffle. So I'm going to show you that in a second. So I started that this week. So that's the reason why I'm doing Kapalua. I also started working on the old course. So the old course, if you played it, it's a little bit aged. It was built with some previous tools. So I decided to take it on and just give it a little bit of a facelift. So I'll talk about that a little bit. And then made some progress on the Hershey Country Club. All right, so first, Kapalua lidar. So what happened with Kapalua, and the reason it hasn't been built up to this point is because there's some problems with the lidar data. If you're not familiar, lidar is elevation data. It's what allows us to essentially build the terrains that we use to put all the golf stuff on top of. Without lidar data, your courses are completely flat, or you have to hand carve them, which is virtually impossible to do. The problem with the Kapalua lidar is that it's unclassified and includes foliage. So what does that mean? Well, instead of just having ground level, okay, it means like the ground itself, this lidar includes all of the trees, which you see there. That's what a tree looks like in lidar. And if I come over here, that's the clubhouse, but it's included with the lidar. So you can see now, what I've done here is I've put an image on top of the lidar, so that's why you see the cart path and the fairways and stuff. So without this, it would just look like a clay molding. But you can see here, I can't build on this because, I mean, look at this. So it's a disaster. So what I've been working on with the help of somebody else this week is trying to figure out how to get rid of these trees, or I'm just going to have to go and flatten them myself. And this is why Kapalua hasn't been built yet, but I volunteered. It's going to take a significant amount of effort to fix this, okay, to get to the point. But I started working on it, and I have started making some progress. So that's what's going on with Kapalua and the Kapalua LiDAR. So another thing, if you watch some of my other courses I've been working on, one of the first things I like to do is build the structures or the buildings for the course. So obviously I'm not anywhere near Hawaii, so I can't go and take pictures of the clubhouse of Kapalua. So I had to do some reconnaissance on Google just to find some pictures. So I did find some pictures. However, some of them are a little bit old, but this is the clubhouse, and you can see, I think this is an older picture. I believe this is a newer one. So I wanted to get an idea of like kind of like what the windows looks like. And it looks like these are like open, but there's some windows on the bottom here, mostly siding on the bottom. There's some stonework along here in the bottom. This one has been very helpful because this is this specific side, and I think this has been after they updated it. But you can see these windows are really tall and they open up. And what I've seen in most of the pictures is they keep this clubhouse open. It's very airy inside. And I found some internal pictures, which don't help me with the outside, but the inside, all the pictures are like the windows all opened up. So there's another good shot of that. So I'm trying to capture that essence here of having these open windows. So inside of Blender, I started building out the structure for this. And you can see here what I did is I had to do some UV mapping. So I took those patterns of the windows, and this is basically an image, and I'm overlaying this image on the window, if you want to call it glass. for a couple reasons. It's much more efficient to use an image instead of shapes. Long story there, but you want to reduce your try count. So you can see here what I've done, and it's hard to tell because I don't have any textures applied yet. Um, and I'll show you. This is the side with the really tall glass, and I had to kind of guess on what that looked like. My goal is I'm going to add all these, and then excuse me, and then I'm going to come back later on, and in Blender I can pivot and I should be able to open these up like on a hinge, and then I'm experimenting in my mind how to make it look like the building is open and you can see on the inside. So I still haven't quite figured out in my head. I got a couple ideas to do that, but that's kind of where I'm at. And this is probably going to take a little bit longer still. But when I get bored on working on the lidar, fixing Kapalua, then I work on the clubhouse and vice versa. So that's kind of where I'm at with Kapalua. Now, the other course I started working on as well is the old course, which really needs a lift. If you do SGT in the tours, you might have played old course a few times because you have to, it's like your Q school, I think they call it Q school, to define your handicap. So I was able to get the LiDAR for this, and the LiDAR looks pretty darn good. So for example, here's a pot bunker. And again, I just have a satellite overlay on this right now because without the satellite overlay, it just looks like a blob, white blob. So the challenge with the old course, of course, is there's a ton of buildings around. So I'm going to have to make a lot of buildings, and I really haven't done any research on what a lot of these look like yet. I think this is the 18th hole. Yeah, this is the 18th hole. And there's like some of those really iconic buildings. I think this is the clubhouse down here. I had to do a little bit of work on the overlays because they were shifted a little bit. So that involves some Photoshop work where I had to go in and move them around. And you can even see that this maybe isn't even quite aligned right. This looks like it still needs to be shifted. So here's the edge of this bunker. It should be on the top of this lip right here. So it looks like this image might actually still need to be shifted. But anyway, I don't need to bore you with how that's done, but it does take a little bit of time in Photoshop to pixel shift these. So that's where I'm with old course. This is going to be low priority for me, so I don't expect to have an update on the old course every week. So this is where I'm at in Hershey, and if you've been following the blog, you might think, well, this looks just like Inkscape. No, this is not Inkscape. This is actually Blender. So the same program that I use to make my clubhouses, I'm also using to blend, or if you want to call it, conform my meshes. So what does that mean? Well, I take all those shapes out of Inkscape, bring them into Blender. I also bring my terrain into Blender, and there were some tools written for us designers called the OPCD tools, and it essentially takes that 2D image and it bends them to the terrain. So you can see here, it's hard to tell, and if I change this to a wireframe, it'd probably be better, but I don't want to spend any time finding that at the moment. Maybe this would be better. Not really. I'll come back here, go back to rendering mode. If I come down, you can see there is some terrain here. This is a somewhat flat course. But one thing you can see for sure, this is a bunker. You can see it's fairly flat. I call this a pancake bunker. It's because my LiDAR isn't accurate enough. So what I'm going to have to do is open up Unity and start digging some bunkers. It's not fun, it's kind of tedious, but in order to get like some depth to these, I am going to have to do it. So I probably have 100 bunkers I'm going to dig. So most likely the next video I do or you see, it's going to be me digging bunkers in the Hershey Country Club.